I would like to welcome Mr. Philip Wollen, OAM, on stage. He has a special address for all of us about peace, ethics, and Ahimsa. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Philip Wollen, OAM. And to introduce to every one of you, we have Professor To Sui Hin. He's the chairman of the forum. Professor To.
May I begin by acknowledging traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered and express our appreciation for the wisdom of the elders. Shalom, Shanti, Assalamu alaikum, Amitofo. Greetings of peace. We have for our special address a very eminent Australian entrepreneur, philanthropist, and humanitarian, Mr. Philip Wollen. He was the vice president of the biggest bank in the world, Citibank, and has established his home in Australia and has contributed enormous achievements as a civic and social leader. He has been honored by the 2007 Australia of the Year Victoria Award and also received the Order of Australia Medal in 2005. Mr. Philip Wollen was described by the National Australia Council in the following terms. Through his kindness and generosity, Philip Wollen brings crucial help to many charitable causes and inspires others to share his humanitarian values and ideals. His achievements in the business world mark him as a man of action, and he channels this energy into practical outcomes for the causes he champions through the winsome constants, kindness, trust. Mr. Philip Wollen's main project, the Winsome Constant Kindness Trust, is a global initiative whose mission statement is to, quote-unquote, to promote kindness towards all other living beings and enshrine it as a recognizable trait in the Australian character and culture. The trust, which is now found in over 45 countries and 500 projects, emphasizes ethics, compassion, and cooperation, and opposes cruelty to humans and non-humans, animals. And therefore, we are greatly honored and would like to welcome Mr. Philip Wollen to address us on the theme of peace, ethics, and Ahimsa on non-violence. May we welcome Mr. Philip Wollen.
Thank you, Professor. First of all, can everybody hear me? Thank you. And may I congratulate and thank the Venerable Master for organizing such a wonderful symposium. I have had such a wonderful time so far, and I hope you'll ask me back again. King Lear, late at night on the cliffs, asks the blind man, the Earl of Gloucester, "How do you see the world?" And the blind man Gloucester replies, "I see it feelingly." And so do I, and so should we all. My topic today is peace, ahimsa, and justice. You see, I don't like talking about myself, so I'll ask you. Imagine you are a frightened teenage boy who arrives in Australia nearly 50 years ago, alone, no money, no parents, no education, no friends, nothing. just a vague ambition to succeed, whatever that is supposed to mean. Imagine you are me. Well, at 40 years of age, I decided to give away everything I owned with warm hands and die broke. And so far, we're right on budget. As the professor said, we now have about 500 projects in 45 countries, and we help children, animals, and the environment with schools, orphanages, shelters, clinics, sanctuaries, farms, biogas plants, ambulances, clean water, that sort of thing. So, what made that young, poor boy, who by now had become a well-off man, decide to give away all his assets? Houses, apartments, factories and office buildings, everything he had, to give away his world of lobster and his Learjet in exchange for shelters and slaughterhouses, to take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints, own nothing but memories, and kill nothing but time. What made him decide to do that? It is not a trivial question. Please search your souls. Intelligent people do not major in minors. Something happened to me. I had been to Dante's Inferno without Beatrice for my love, nor Virgil for my guide. And in my travels, I learned 7 important truths. A man is measured not by how much money he makes, but how much of it he is prepared to give away, particularly to strangers. You see, I did not find my character on Wall Street because it lives on the road to Damascus. A successful life means nothing unless it is also a significant life. You see, Socrates was right. An unexamined life is not worth living. I examined my life. And Epicurus, the Greek, was also right. If you wish to increase a man's share of happiness, do not aim to increase his possessions. Simply decrease his desires. I learned that the hands that help are holier than the lips that pray. And before enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. After enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. Now, the Icelanders have a wonderful story about a ship called Skidbladnir, a mythical ship. And apart from its gigantic size, it had 2 qualities that made it unique. One, if it was stuck on the ocean, it could call up a breeze from any direction to take it wherever it wanted to go. And 2, it could be folded up so small and so light, you could carry it in your pocket. Imagine that. A ship that could take you wherever you wanted to go, and so small it weighed nothing. That is the most profound metaphor for a compassionate mind. A compassionate mind weighs nothing, and it can take you wherever you want to go. Now, they say that Americans go to war to learn about geography. Well, I have found a better way. I go where I am needed, to hungry children, suffering animals, and a dying planet. This is where I live. In Africa, 12-year-old boy soldiers kill their neighbors with AK-47 rifles. In China, 7,000 magnificent moon bears, their limbs are torn off in traps, are imprisoned for 26 years in coffins welded shut as a catheter drains bile into a bucket, which is drunk by the local people. I wrote a book for Nelson Mandela entitled, Tell Me and Tell Me the Truth, because these bears spent 26 years in prison and they go insane. And Nelson Mandela spent 26 years in Robben Island and nearly went insane also. In Korea, 1 million dogs are beaten to death every year because the butchers believe that pain and suffering makes the meat tasty. In South Africa, 5,000 tame orphan lions are drugged and killed with guns or spears or torn apart by hunting dogs, and they call it sport. In Canada, 300,000 baby seal pups are clubbed to death on the ice. Their tiny hearts are still beating. In China, dogs are suspended on hooks and skinned alive to make trim in the furred coats which are sold here in the shops here in Toowoomba. Necklaces of long lines, some of them 100 kilometers long, strangle the globe with 10 billion steel hooks, killing dolphins, albatrosses, and turtles. Today, we treat the oceans like our private pantry and a public toilet. The Pacific Gyre is now so full of plastic, junk, and human feces, it has created a floating island bigger than India. Dolphins and whales are stabbed to death in the shallows of Japan and Denmark. Huge bays are blood red. This is where we work. This is my job. Millions of sharks are torn from the sea, their fins are hacked off, and they're thrown overboard to die thrashing, agonizing deaths for shark fin soup. Animal factories all around the world spew chemicals into the ocean, creating hypoxic dead zones, no oxygen in the water, totaling 1 million square kilometers, killing plants, coral, and ocean animals. The ocean bed today is a moonscape, and the seas are a toxic soup of acid. Do you know that dairy calves right around the world are killed by farmers standing on their rib cage and breaking their ribs? That is how they kill calves in the dairy industry. And that is the law. You're allowed to do it under the law. Billions of baby chicks are ground up every day in mechanical mincers simply because they are male. And religious sacrifices today make the 21st century look like the new Dark Ages. Poor children starve today because their croplands are now producing crops for the meat-eating foreigners. You'll be pleased to know I won't show you any more pictures, but we have over 400,000 pictures. I've only shown you 14. So let me give you, please, some information. You know, Pure Land is a wonderful organization. I heard last night, our lives will be saved by education. And I thought, exactly. You need information. You know, 90% of the small fish in the ocean are ground up into pellets to feed to livestock. Today, vegetarian cows are the world's largest ocean predator. Cows eat more fish than whales, sharks, dolphins, seals, everyone. And the oceans are dying in our time. By 2048, all our fisheries will be dead. 2048. And they are the lungs and the arteries of the earth. If anyone here has a child under 10 years old, you should be terrified. I promise you. In human history, only 100 billion people ever lived. And yet we, human beings, we torture and we kill 3 billion sentient, living, loving animals every week. 3 billion a week. 10,000 entire species are wiped out every year because of the actions of one species, us. We wipe out 10,000 species. And we are now facing the 6th mass extinction in cosmological history. If any other organism did that, we would call it a virus. It is a crime against humanity of unimaginable proportions. Now, every religion in this room started with an oral history, every one of them. Well, if we taped the oral history of the powerless animals, their screams would drown out the sound and the fury of the Big Bang. Ladies and gentlemen, the world today is crying out for only 2 things: leadership and the truth. The wise Chinese, I think, have a word for it, zhengjiao. Listen to the friend who tells you the truth, even if it hurts. Beautiful words. Listen to the friend who tells you the truth, even if it hurts. So let's just tell the truth. Fearlessly and forcefully. That is what the Sanskrit word satyagraha means. The truth force. Rudyard Kipling, the famous poet, wrote of young men dying in World War I. And if they ask you why we died, tell them that our fathers lied. Our fathers lied. Edmund Burke, the philosopher, wrote, for evil to prevail, all it takes is for good people to do nothing. Doing nothing is not an option. I have long admired the famous Count Moltke, the Prussian general. A man, they say, who preferred to think rather than speak. A man silent in 7 languages. You see, it takes courage for me to stand up here and speak. It also takes courage for you to sit down and listen. You know, I heard the screams of my dying father as his body was ravaged by the cancer that killed him. In his lungs, in his veins, in his lymph glands, in his prostate, in his bones, and then in his brain. I heard him screaming like you will never imagine. And then I realized I had heard those screams before. In the slaughterhouse, on the cattle ships from Australia to the Middle East, and the dying mother whale as a Japanese harpoon explodes in her brain as she calls out to her calf. Their cries were the cries of my father. They sounded identical. And I discovered that when we suffer, all of us and the animals, when we suffer as equals. And in their capacity to suffer, a dog is a pig, is a bear, is a boy. Victor Hugo said, there is nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come. Here is the idea whose time has come. Animal rights is now the greatest social issue since the abolition of slavery. So our motto, my wife and I, is kindness sans frontières, kindness without borders. We cross the borders of nations, of politics, of race, and of religion. But we also cross the bloodiest border of all, the border of species. That is where most of the crimes are committed. I put myself into harm's way and to dangerous situations. I may be prepared to turn the other cheek, but I am not prepared to turn my back on the powerless. The anthropologist Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a few committed people can change the world. Indeed, that is the only thing that ever has." Well, there are only 13 million Jews in the world, but they play a vibrant role in world affairs, in politics, science, philosophy, the arts, Nobel Prizes. Tibet's population is only 3 million. But who hasn't heard of the plight of the Tibetan? Everybody knows. But there are over 600 million vegetarians in the world. And that is bigger than the United States, England, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all put together. If we were one nation, we would be bigger than the 27 nations of the European Union. We are big. And despite this massive demographic footprint, we are still drowned out by the raucous, huntin', shootin', killin' cretins who believe that violence is the answer when it should not even be a question. Many of the people in this room, trust me, have the capacity to change the world. I am not a patient man. Patience is an overrated virtue. I'm sure you know that scientists describe chaos theory and the butterfly effect as a butterfly flapping her wings in the Amazon jungle and affecting weather patterns in Africa, typhoons in the South China Sea, and hurricanes in Nebraska. Small events have massive, unpredictable, non-linear consequences. Small events, small people can change the world. But we live in a world of media sound bites. It reminds me of Hannah Arendt's book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, where she coins the term, the banality of evil. At the Australian of the Year Awards in Canberra, and also after receiving the Order of Australia, I received a lot of press. And I was attacked by one of the large Murdoch newspapers across the country. And this is how one of his deceitful, lying journalists twisted my innocent words. Mr. Wollen, I'm surprised a man of your standing would say that meat is murder, a little old lady with the budgerigar is offending God, livestock producers are unethical, there will be no peace until we stop killing animals, industry is unattractive, animals are like human children. Can't you see how offensive that is to our farmers? Well, this was my diplomatic counterpunch. Well, even for a journalist, You have certainly bludgeoned the English language to death. But if you're going to quote me, please do it honestly. I did say, a robin redbreast in a cage puts all heaven in a rage. But that wasn't me, that was William Blake in his poem, Auguries of Innocence. And by the way, it was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who said, a sparrow does not fall from the sky without Allah knowing. And yes, I did say, the commandment, thou shalt not kill, applies to the murder of any living being. It was inscribed on the human breast long before it was proclaimed from Mount Sinai. But that really wasn't me, that was Leo Tolstoy. And yes, I admit I did say, the roots of cruelty are not strong, just widespread. But the time will come when inhumanity, protected by custom, will succumb to humanity championed by thought. A man is ethical only when all life is sacred to him. And I was so pleased to see that written up there today. But that was actually the Nobel Prize winner, Albert Schweitzer. And yes, I did say, as long as we kill animals, there will never be peace. Nowhere in the world. It is only one step to the concentration camps of Hitler and Stalin. There will be no justice as long as man will stand with a knife and destroy those who are weaker than him. But that was Isaac Singer, who knew the Holocaust in Auschwitz, Dachau, and Buchenwald, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And yes, Mr. Journalist, I admit I did have something to say about animals and children. The wolf will lie down with the lamb, the leopard with the young goat, the young lion with the young ones of the herd, and a little child will lead them. But actually that was the prophet Isaiah, not me. And no, I didn't say anything at all about greed and ambition. That wasn't me. That was Jesus. He said, behold the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. King Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed as one of these. And for good measure, he added, whatever you do to the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. You did it to me. So are you, as a journalist, suggesting that your rural audience is offended by Nobel Prize winners and the prophets? Or should I just go home and burn my books? I seem to recall that was the strategy favored by Pol Pot. Well, the journalist was speechless. He scurried away and he wrote a nasty article about me, calling me a radical. You see, we need another Copernicus to remind us that we are not the center of the universe. We are not the center of the universe. We are just small parts of it. But the world has changed. 10 years ago, Twitter was a bird song. www was a stuck keyboard. Cloud was in the sky. 4G was a parking space. Facebook was a mirror. Google was a baby burping. Al-Qaeda was my plumber. And Skype was a typo. The world has changed. And we need to stop what we're doing. We waste billions of dollars on cruel experiments on animals that do nothing for humans. We spend billions to stop cows releasing greenhouse gases so we can eat cows. And methane is 24 times more potent than CO2. Zoonotic diseases now are spreading from animals to people. And some scientists are predicting a pandemic to rival the Black Death, which wiped out half of Europe. 60% of the people in the West are now obese or overweight. So they spend billions on invasive surgery to cut it off. Medicare bills caused by bad meat-eating diets has now bankrupted the United States. The United States will need $8 trillion invested in treasury bills just to pay the interest. And they have precisely zero. The United States can shut down every school, university, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Homeland Security, CIA and FBI, and they still will not have enough money to pay their doctor's bills. And now Harvard and Cornell University admit that the optimum amount of meat in a healthy human diet is precisely zero. So having big health budgets and still eating meat is madness. It is like putting ambulances at the bottom of a cliff. As Einstein famously said, we can't solve problems using the same thinking we used when we created the problem. And the great historian Barbara Tuchman said, folly is acting against our own best interests. Well, here is our folly. Meat now threatens our own food, water, and border security. Water is the new oil. Nations will soon be going to war for it. Underground aquifers that took millions of years to fill are now running dry. When I was a Boy Scout, I drilled my first well and we touched water at 50 feet. Today, we are at 800 feet and we're sucking mud. In one of my projects in China, we're at 3,000 feet and it is still dry. No water. Do you know, it takes 50,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilo of beef. It takes 1,000 liters of water to produce 1 liter of milk. When we will soon be drinking recycled sewage, and people are drinking recycled sewage in many countries already. 1 acre of land in the West produces 100 kilos of beef and 20,000 kilos of potatoes and 40,000 kilos of lettuce. Today, 1 billion people are hungry. 20 million people will die this year from malnutrition. If we cut our meat consumption by only 10%, we can feed 100 million people. And if we all became vegetarian, we can feed the planet forever. Please remember, when I was a young man, my favorite food was filet mignon and lobster, and I'd fly around in a jet. I have changed, and if I can change, everyone can change. If everyone ate a Western diet, we will need 2 planet Earths to feed us. We've only got 1, and she is dying. You know, food prices are skyrocketing. Rice used to cost me $197 a ton for Thai rice to feed my projects in Asia. The price then went to $1,015 a ton. A 5-fold increase in 5 months. In Africa, where I have some experience as well, and in South America, I have to say, poor countries are selling their grain to the West for hard currency, while their own children starve in their arms, and the West feeds it to livestock. So we can eat a steak. Am I the only one in the room who sees that as a crime? Please remember this. Every morsel of meat we eat is slapping the tear-stained face of a starving child. When I look into her eyes, do I remain silent? The earth can produce enough food for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. And this meat industry is bankrupting and killing us. The risk of fatal breast cancer in women and prostate cancer in men is 4 times higher than it is for vegetarians, 4 times. The risk of a heart attack in the West is 50%, the same as tossing a coin, 50-50. For an Indian vegetarian, the risk is only 4%. For a Chinese vegetarian, it's 4%. For a Malaysian vegetarian, it is 4%. But for us in the West, it's 50%. The United Nations now says that greenhouse gas emissions from the meat industry now far exceeds those from transport, cars, trains, buses, ships, everything. Livestock is 150 times more than that, more than transport. I should tell you that the Siberian permafrost is now a ticking time bomb. When it releases its sequestered methane gas, all bets are off. The game is over. Scientists predicted that the Arctic summer ice would disappear in 40 years. Then they revised it to 8 years, and now they're saying 2 years. The Himalayan ice fields are correctly called the third pole because they are like the South Pole and North Pole, lots of ice. And they feed half the world's population through the Ganges, the Indus, the Brahmaputra, the Yangtze, the Irrawaddy, the Mekong, and the Yellow River. And they are melting fast. Economies will collapse and produce vector-borne diseases that will wipe out communities in the millions. I had lunch with Muhammad Yunus when he won the Nobel Prize, and I told him that all the good he had done will vanish when Bangladesh drowns. Here in Australia, we panic when 1,000 refugees arrive on boats on our shores. Imagine greenhouse gas emissions hitting 500 parts per million or a 3-degree temperature rise. Melting polar caps will create 1 billion eco-refugees. That calamity will reshape the geopolitical landscape forever. We are facing the perfect storm. If any nation had created weapons that could wreak such havoc on the world, we would launch a preemptive military strike and bomb it back into the Bronze Age. But we can't. It's not a rogue state. It's an industry, and we are its customers. The good news is we don't have to bomb it. We can just stop buying it. So George Bush was wrong. The axis of evil does not run through North Korea, Iraq, or Iran. It runs through our dining tables. Weapons of mass destruction are our knives and forks. By being vegetarian, we solve all our environment, water, forests, health, and ethical problems. It is the Swiss Army knife for living an enlightened, happy, healthy, and peaceful life. And at the Australian of the Year Awards in Canberra, the press also attacked me for saying that meat is the new asbestos. So I showed them the science. And then they questioned my patriotism. But I am a patriot. Like Mark Twain, I support my country always, and my government only when it deserves it. You know, I speak to groups all around the world. Sometimes 100 people, sometimes 1,000 like this, sometimes 5,000. And they all have many things in common. They're all good people, spiritual people, caring people, loving people, honest people, who genuinely want to change the world, as long as they don't have to change themselves. Unfortunately, life does not work that way. First we change in our hearts, and then the world follows. So I say that, and I say this to everyone in the industry, that meat is the greatest scam ever perpetrated in human history. Meat kills more animals and people in 1 year than every human being ever born. There are no good reasons to eat animals, just excuses. Meat, thank you. This industry will end because it is useless. The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. The meat industry will end because we run out of excuses. And farmers are the ones with the most to gain. Farming won't end, it would boom. Only the product line will change. Real farmers will make so much money, they wouldn't even bother counting it. My hope is that the next billionaire will build a vegetarian version of McDonald's. My tip is that he will be Indian, most likely from Gujarat, because Gujarat is a vegetarian state. And governments will love us. New industries would emerge and flourish. Health insurance premiums would plummet. Hospital waiting lists would disappear. I often joke, we would be so healthy, we'd have to shoot somebody just to start a cemetery. I'd have to say, Pure Land is 100% correct. Education is the key. Ignorance is not an incurable disease, unless you live in Canberra. Dostoevsky asks in The Brothers Karamazov, is the suffering of one child worth all the wealth in the world? And what if it is the child of an ape? And he said, no, all the wealth in the world is not worth the suffering of that one soul. You see, cruelty is something we learn. I have a standing bet to anyone in the world, a big bet. You put a child in a room, just the child, with an apple and a bunny. If she eats the apple and is cruel to the bunny, I will buy you a new car. So far, no one has taken the bet. Believe me, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, no decent person would ever eat an animal again. You see, we are cousins. They are not just other species. They are other nations. And we murder them at our peril. The bishop of a big church in Melbourne was very frightened of me when I said I couldn't eat a meal with him because I did not want to eat the rotten corpse of a murder victim. When I work for the United Nations and write to them, I always say that the peace map is drawn on a menu. Peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of justice. Justice must be blind to race, to color, to caste, to creed, to religion, and to species. If she is not blind in all of these circumstances, she will become a weapon of terror. Justice must be blind. True leaders like you are very, very important. But true leaders must also face their own demons honestly. Peter Niemöller, the German priest, philosopher, and a U-boat captain during the war, spent 8 years in prison for condemning German intellectuals for being cowards. And he wrote, "When the Nazis came for the communists, I remained silent. I was not a communist. When they locked up the Democrats, I remained silent. I was not a Democrat. When they came for the trade unionists, I did not speak out. I was not a trade unionist. When they came for the Jews, I remained silent. I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out." Men and women of integrity must speak out. As you probably know, I come from a corporate investment banking, that kind of environment. And when I changed, the world changed for me, but my friends and the community changed against me. And to this very my wife will tell you, even to this day, the meat and livestock industry carry a lot of power, and they still make death threats to want to kill us. But we're not likely to stop, I have to say. I ask you all in future lives to please act courageously. Courage is the key. Education is the key. Wisdom is the key. Is it not better to light a candle than to curse the darkness? All the darkness in the world cannot put out the light of a single candle. You know, the last sentence of Scott Fitzgerald's book, The Great Gatsby, reads, "So we beat on, boats against the tide, drawn back ceaselessly into the past." I ask you, are we to live forever in a sick, smug, and cruel past? Let's not relive history, let's make history, because that is what leaders do. We make history. You see, I believe in my heart another world is possible. And on a quiet night, I can hear her breathing. I call on everyone today to please do all you can in your communities, your families and friends and businesses, to do everything you can to stop killing and being cruel to our cousins. Please start that today. You see, your own religions, your own faiths will tell you that. Justice and your private faith will demand it of you anyway, because you have wise minds. You wouldn't be here otherwise. Wise minds, pure hearts, and clean hands. So do not be afraid. Remember my hero's words, Mahatma Gandhi. First they ignore you. Then they laugh at you. Then they fight you. and then you win. Our animal cousins have survived millions of years of evolution. They've earned the right to share this beautiful planet, this pure land, with us in peace. They have waited long enough. The brutes and the bullies have been Goliath, but David is coming. Maybe he is in this room. Maybe he is one of you. And if not you, who? And if not now, when? Thank you all, and blessings to you.
The theme of this Multi-Faith Forum is love, peace and harmony. And I think Mr. Philip Wollen has truly inspired us that to practice love, peace and harmony is not just to all other human beings, but all the species of the universe. And so we truly thank Mr. Philip Wollen for his courage, wisdom and compassion, and to move us to practice peace, love and harmony to all humanity and also all parts of our environment. Thank you again to Mr. Philip Wollen.